Hello, my good friends. I am here with a video I have been wanting to make for a while. This is a video where I, an atheist inner city teacher, react to a Christian nationalist homeschool mom who's recommending books. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. As you can see, I am recording my screen on a homeschool website. I often frequent homeschool pages to find books for my classroom. So I'm going to do this faceless today because I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and it just takes up a lot of tech for me to do face and screen recording. And that's not really the point of this video. You don't really need to see me. This Mom Delights woman, I have seen a few of her videos, mostly surrounding books, and she is what I would 100% call a Christian nationalist. As you guys know, I'm an atheist, and I'm also an inner city teacher. So these Christian nationalist type people, they are very anti-TV, they are very into censorship. So I'm going to react to this video, which I'll be transparent, I have seen before, but honestly don't remember that well. I just watched it one day on my lunch break, and yeah, so already I can see some books that I approve of. Beowulf, of course, I have this version of Beowulf, and it's not the one I read out of initially when I was in my medieval literature class, nor is it the one I read in high school because that one was in a textbook. But my teacher had that copy, and I know it's bilingual. It has Old English, which is considered a different language, and the Modern English. And I am thinking of doing a video coming up of Beowulf versus Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I very much prefer Sir Gawain, but I am interested to hear what she says about Beowulf. She's got an American Heritage Junior Library book right there, which I have one of those from my grandmother's house, and they're very problematic because they're old. It's vintage. Narnia, C.S. Lewis, I shouldn't be surprised to see them. And Johnny Tremain. I love Johnny Tremain. I hold it in one of my videos recently. So let's go ahead and start. Mom Delights, I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you for uploading this video. Obviously, I disagree with your ideology, but I appreciate and applaud you for putting your beliefs out there for other people and opening yourself up to some criticism that I personally believe you deserve, but I am going to applaud you for the simple act of sharing your beliefs. Let's get going.
Hello there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, and I'm the mom of 15 children, been homeschooling over 3 decades, and a lot of people have asked me for recommendations for books for boys, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
15 children. Gosh, that sounds painful.
So I have so many ideas for books for boys. I personally believe that there are more books for boys than for girls.
I disagree. I've had a very hard time finding books that my boys in my class will read. I find that sci-fi is good for them. Nonfiction, a lot of my boys gravitate towards nonfiction, but sci-fi and nonfiction are really the two ones I can count on for a boy to actually pick up and be okay reading. It's hard to get my boys, the inner city boys, to read. So thank you for uploading this.
I think it's harder to find books. I mean, really character building, godly books for girls than there are for boys. Although generally girls can read stuff for boys and get a lot out of it.
Notice she has a very binary brain. It happens when you get these really religious people, but we'll keep going.
But anyway, so I actually have a list that I would like to start. So I'd like to start with some general recommendations for when you're trying to get boys into books and get books into boys. Boys generally they need adventure and purpose.
Yes, because all boys are the same.
Book. I know. Look at this. I think this is a Remington.
It is a Remington painting. It's beautiful.
Painting, but look at this. This kind of typifies the kind of book a boy would like. He would like to see action. Would like to see a purpose. That's why boys and heroism are really great. I mean, I don't like my boys just to read any book.
Okay, I agree with what she said at first. Boys and heroism is good. They do like that, which is why I think they gravitate towards sci-fi. Sci-fi oftentimes is very like man versus the machine, man versus the establishment. It's very straightforward, and you rise to be a hero at the end.
I want them to read books that really build character. Now, there's some newer books that do that, and but they're mostly older books, but I've found some newer ones too. I know that a lot of us are like, a lot of boys are into like the video game books or the Star Wars books or whatever. And
Yes, they are. Those are great.
I understand because that's popular culture. That's all over the place. Guys get into it. But I think there are some better alternatives that are actually more fun and they actually feed the soul rather than just, a quick fix, something to read,
Personally, I don't believe in a soul, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a quick fix. This type of censorship really infuriates me. But let's go ahead and see the ones she recommends.
Also, when I'm talking,
Please don't mind the Discord. I know it's annoying, but I don't know how to go in there and fix it, to be honest.
Books that encourage character and heroism and all these things. These are things that we want to build in our boys for future generations. Because our job as homeschool moms is to create like a default inside of our kids that no matter what choices they make in life, there's like this default. And of course, it's the Holy Spirit and it's God's work, but we're there
yes, of course.
Give them direction and kind of stabilize that and encourage that in their lives. So, first off, I'm going to just kind of take you through this stack I've created here. And I'm also going to, as I go along, I'll add in other things that I don't currently have within a visual range. But I'm going to create a blog post, Lord willing, and I will have like links to everything that I talk about here today.
I'll go ahead and say that I do not read her blog, but I do watch her videos a lot of the times.
So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Okay, so I showed you this right here. I showed you this cover, and we're just kind of talking about, adventure, action, purpose. Now this is Cowboys in Cattle Country. This is a book by that's from the American Heritage Junior Library, and this is one of those vintage book sets that you can get. And this is kind of torn up here, but you can find these individually.
I actually have it on my wish list, those vintage book sets. They are problematic, but they are very cool. I have the one about whaling.
Online, and you can find them in sets. And they are really, really good history books. Now, I am not for the revisionist woke baloney. So,
I don't know what that means. I guess you can tell me in the comments what that means.
I search for things that maybe not all of them are 100%, but they're mostly, they're good books. So you can trust this one, the American Heritage Junior Library. If you can find books like at library sales, estate sales, stuff like that, these are good books to get. They have all kinds of different, let's see, I don't know if they have a list of titles in the back. No, there's the index. I don't know if they
Beautiful
have
paintings.
It. Okay. Nope, not there. Sometimes they'll have like a list.
Beautiful pictures.
Cowboys in Cattle Country, Texas and the War with Mexico, the
I bet that one's
Colony,
bad.
The California Gold Rush, Pirates of the Spanish Main, Trappers and Mountain Men, Men of Science and Invention, Naval Battles and Heroes, Thomas Jefferson and His World, Discoverers of the New World, Railroads in the Days of Steam, Indians of the Plains, A Story of Yankee Whaling, and
that's the one I have.
There's even more. There's even more of them. I mean, they published a lot of these over the years. Okay, so that's one. But this is not really for a beginning reader, right? And a lot of people are asking me, I think, for
I'd say not.
Boys. And so I have some suggestions for that. One of the suggestions I have is that you cull the Robinson Curriculum Library.
All right, that is a Christian Nationalist homeschool curriculum. You can go look it up yourself.
There are places like Rosegate Harbor has like a listing of the different books, but just you can just purchase the Robinson curriculum, and you'll have access, and you'll have to print things off, and
I'll say that you actually don't need to purchase a lot of this stuff because most of what's used on these type of homeschooling programs are in the public domain, because a long time ago, I think that just would fit their worldview a little bit better. So a lot of the stuff she's going to recommend, based on what I've seen, it's all in the public domain. You don't have to pay for
You'll
it.
have to bind them yourself. Oh, but it also gives you a list. You can look online and find some of these books have been reprinted and stuff like that. A lot of his books are really a lot for boys. I think he had mostly boys. Dr. Robinson had mostly boys, and so a lot of boys' books are in that list. The Tom Swift books, the Rover Boys, I think, were some of the
Blech.
series that were written. You know, there have been a lot of series in the past that were written for boys, full of adventure and all kinds of stuff. So, anyway, that's one thing. Another thing that I have found, and this is a series of books too. This is done by Grosset and Dunlap. This is called the Signature Books series. This one in particular is the story of Lafayette. This is like the first chapter book that one of our sons
Oh, it's cute.
read, our first son.
I had to look into
And
that.
he even put his name in the front. And he did written narrations on this. But you see the
Oh, I
writing is
love
very
written
simple.
narrations. Those are
And so
good.
this is like
That's a good
beginner
exercise.
beginner reader's book. And actually, there is a list
God,
here
it's so
of the
cute.
different ones in this series.
All right, what does
The
it
story
say?
of Buffalo Bill, the story of Christopher Columbus,
Christopher
the story of
Columbus.
Davy Crockett, the story of Thomas Alva Edison. And it has all the different ones
Oh,
here,
Robert E.
as
Lee.
you
I
can
bet a
see.
lot of these are
So
really
this is another
problematic.
good series to look up,
But it's
and it's
cute.
easy. One of them, there's an old one about the Wright brothers that's really good. I didn't bring it out here, but it's really good. But that's another boys series. And there's just so much for boys, I gotta tell you. Now, I've got to tell you, for my boys, what they really liked when they were first reading, and I don't have a copy here, but I have it in my library someplace, is Roald Dahl's books, The
Oh, he's great.
and especially the Incredible Mr. Fox, the
Fantastic
Mr. Fox.
Yes,
That
yes.
was their absolute favorite.
My kids might like those because they're silly.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. I don't know why, but it appealed to all my
Because it's
children,
cute.
boys and girls alike, but especially the boys.
And it's silly.
They loved that book. Another book that they really liked was, let's see, Hank the Cowdog series. I don't know if you've heard of Hank the Cowdog, but it's so easy to read, and it's
My
so
boys wouldn't
funny,
like that.
and it just kind of pulls kids
That's
in.
a little
the fellow
redneck
who wrote
for them.
Hank the Cowdog has actually put his books on tape, and he does like the different voices, and it's really hilarious. But
It might be.
my boys absolutely, my grandsons love Hank the Cowdog. Okay,
I don't think
Hank
inner
the
city kids would
Cowdog
like
is
that.
really great. It's so easy to read, and so those are some beginning books that boys like a lot. Okay, so let's move on here. Now,
Oh, Robin Hood, that's a good
I've talked
one.
a lot about printing your own books, and
She does. So I'm going to speak directly to her. Thank you, Mom Delights, for doing that. I've used it. But I actually already did kind of know how to bind books because of my medieval literature class. It is a pain in the butt. It was really painful. One of the worst projects I've ever had to do. She talks about some easier ways to bind books from the public domain. So thank you for putting that on there.
I have like a video. I think I have. I also, on my blog, I have like a tutorial on how you can do it in, a certain way. There's so many ways to do that, by the way. But what I've done is like, this is The Adventures of Robin Hood, and this is done by H.E. Marshall, and it's really
My boys would like that.
simple,
Oh,
and it's short
Pinocchio.
and sweet and to the point. And I got this off of Heritage History, if you can see that. And
Problematic
this is
again.
by H.E. Marshall. Anyway, I think it's illustrated by Pyle. I'm not 100% on that.
I know Pyle did
anyway,
a King Arthur one.
It's really easy to read, and it's something that a boy will really like. Robin Hood is a really neat read for a young boy.
It is.
And here is The Adventures of Pinocchio by C. Collodi. And this one,
I don't know.
This is a Google book. And so what I've done with these,
Google Books is a good place.
Printed 2 to a page. It's a PDF, right? I printed 2 to a page, and they're double-sided.
Yep.
Right? And then I had on the switch, let's see, I'm sorry, I don't know what it's
Flip on the left.
Switch on the left side. I don't know, I forget the terminology. But anyway,
Flip on the left.
It's flip on the left side. So
there we go.
Do it so that you can flip it on the left side. And then what I did is you can just go on, you can do this on Canva. Just go on Canva and make yourself a little cover and print it on cardstock. This is almost cardstock. And then how I put these together is that
I don't have time for that, so I just use paper.
Punch them. I don't know if let's see, a 3-hole punch, and then I just sewed it with dental floss.
Very
And then
easy.
I taped
It
the
works
cover
well.
on, and I put little plastic, I think this
Yep.
is from like
I use that
a
sometimes.
page protector, and I just
Yeah.
put some plastic on the front, and so that kind of protected it, and that way they can read it. And it's a cheap way to do it. It's easy. You
It's
don't have
very
to really
cheap.
fiddle with it too much.
Yeah.
And that's that. So another thing that I like from there's something called heritage history, which I've talked about,
Very problematic.
is they have a lot of history, like especially early American. Okay, this is
Yeah.
Stories of American Life and Adventure from Edward Eggleston. I didn't even put any plastic
Oh,
on this
what a
thing.
last name,
And
Eggleston.
this is pretty easy reading. It's a little smaller text than the others, but it's still pretty easy going. It's not really hard
Twice
to
a slave?
understand. And these have
Jeez.
some really great stories. They're not necessarily categorized very well, but I mean, it's just a little bit here and there, and they're a lot of fun. They're really short reads.
I'll
So if
look
you
it
have
up.
a young guy that kind of likes to read, maybe, but he has short attention span, just one story
I
at a
have a lot
time,
of
and then
those.
he can narrate it orally back to you, and that could be even a school thing, a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Here's James Otis is one of my favorites. And so he writes really cool stuff about early American
That looks
history,
about
and
on
it's
my boys' reading
fun
level.
to read. Oh, it's a lot of fun. He usually takes like Calvert of Maryland. So this young man's name is Calvert, and he lives in
Oh,
Maryland,
okay. I get
and
it.
he just tells about adventures and things that happened to him, and there's some good illustrations here too. So it's a lot of fun. So that's heritage history right there. Then here's another one of his, Peter of New Amsterdam. This one is good.
That's New York.
So I even I highlighted some words that
The
I wanted to use
brown
for
men or
vocabulary as they were
savages?
reading.
What?
But anyway, there you go. There's a lot
Oh
of
my
cool stuff in
God.
there. This is Stephen of Philadelphia. And here is, let's see. Oh, and here's another good writer. Heritage history is one of those things you could just spend hours and days and get all kinds of stuff.
Jeez.
He did this Cyrus the Great because there's supposedly be parallels between our time and the time of Cyrus. So this is fascinating reading. It's from Jacob Abbott.
I don't think I
And
have too
it's
many
just
guys
amazing
interested
because
in the Middle East.
Cyrus the Great was involved in Israel and Jerusalem of that time. The time of
Nah.
Jeremiah the prophet. And I got this
Assuming he
cool
was a real
illustration for the
person.
front from Clip Art, etc. And I just used this and I put it on Canva, and I just made my own little thing.
Looks good.
So anyway, yeah. And you find out that his strategies of war are very interesting. And you can look even in
That
our
would be
modern time, and
interesting.
they've actually patterned after some of the things he's done, and it really opens your eyes. It's really interesting. Okay, and here's
That
The
sound
Story
interesting.
of Liberty by Charles Coffin. And this is one I
Uh,
printed out myself, but you can find this already bound from Maranatha something
and
or
pay
other.
for it.
Anyway, I love Charles Coffin. My kids love Charles Coffin. Boys love Charles Coffin. He's got
I don't know
so
much
much
about
cool
Charles
stuff.
Coffin, but
Let's see. I've got another book here that boys would really, really like, and that is The Boys of 76, because unlike a lot of the books that I've mentioned, this talks about all the battles. And
so I have a lot of boys who want to go into the military. I would have to look into that. I don't know if they're so much interested in battles, more so like the mechanics behind it, because for some reason, I don't get it. My boys love cars. They love cars, they love helicopters, they love machinery, and I just don't get it. But that actually kind of looks like something I would be interested in reading. And if I like it, I'd put it in my classroom.
And guys love to read about the battles. I think it's boring. But my
I
guys, they
disagree.
like to, and they talk about the different things they go through. Here's an illustration.
Well, it's got
This is just fascinating. And see, the text isn't too
it has dialogue in it, so it must be a story.
small, and the writing is pretty straightforward, and it's a story, and boys love this.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another thing that every boy.
Beowulf.
Now, this might, young.
Okay. She's about to talk about Beowulf. Can't quite remember from the first time I watched this what she said about it, other than every boy going into manhood needs to read it. Just every English-speaking person needs to read it because it shaped storytelling in the English language so much. It is a classic, tale of heroism and honor and chivalry and man versus monster. If you haven't read Beowulf, read it, and the movie's actually pretty good, I will say.
Young boys, maybe not so much, but every a young boy that's going into manhood should
Yep.
read Beowulf. And oh, it is amazing. I had our son after his voice had deepened, he read this aloud to the rest of the children. And this Beowulf is a bilingual edition. Has the original on this side and the translation over
Look at
here,
that.
which is really cool. And
That old English.
it has an introduction to it. What really turned me on to Beowulf was Laurie White's King Alfred's English. So you need that book first. You need to read it. You need your kids to read it, and then when you read Beowulf, you'll go, "Oh,
King
this is
Alfred's
amazing."
English.
So, good book. Boys love it. All right. Now, let's go over here and we're going to grab some C.S. Lewis. Now, everybody knows
Okay.
C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. And
Yep.
here they are. And young boys and...
Okay. I'm gonna talk about, this is called C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. I'm gonna talk about it really quickly. They're good, but it's misleading. It's not a sci-fi book. It's like a grown-up Narnia. It's a portal fantasy. So this college professor, I think, or a medical doctor, his name's Doctor, and he gets abducted by aliens and taken to another planet. And it's a fantasy realm. So essentially, the spaceship is the portal taking him to a fantasy world, kind of like the wardrobe is in Narnia. So if you go into it expecting a traditional sci-fi story, you're going to be really disappointed. It's not sci-fi, it's fantasy, but I did enjoy it.
Oh boy, this is so great. I mean, boys can read this for hours and hours and hours. This is the entire collection in one
Anybody can read
volume,
that.
which is really neat. We had another one of these and we totally wore it out. It fell to pieces, so I had to buy another one. And oh yeah, this is terrific for boys. Just can't even put it down. It's great, great, great. So then C.S. Lewis also wrote a science fiction trilogy. And this is Out of the Silent Planet, that Hideous Strength. And there's another one, the first one, and I don't have it with me
Paralandra.
right here. But these are, oh yeah, Paralandria.
Mhm.
Let's see, first in the celebrated trilogy, followed by Paralandria and the Hideous Strength. So Out of the Silent Planet is first, then Paralandria, and then that Hideous Strength. So these are science fiction books, and they're written with a Christian theme in mind, and it's really interesting. My girls actually have read these, but anyway, these are great books for boys.
Yeah, they're good.
Another great book for boys
Yes,
is
ma'am.
Johnny Tremaine. It's an
Love
early
it.
American story. I've got a lot of that here. I know, I realize, but this is really a good story, and it's not sweet. It's not pumpkin pie, sweet, girly stuff. It's got some
intense.
real good themes to it. All right, now here are, like I said, I have a few new books.
Okay, I haven't read these. Voices of Ordinary Heroes. They're probably problematic, but what I love about, you can see she's got Anne Frank under her thumb right there. I often use Anne Frank as an example of why young people should write, because Anne Frank was just a normal person going through an extraordinary situation, kind of like my kids. Had she not written, we wouldn't know about her or the things that happened to her and what happened to the Jews back then, because not many of them had a chance to tell their story. And Anne Frank wrote it down, and she was just an ordinary kid, just like my kids. So I love it.
Was sent these to review, and I really liked them for new books. Voices of Ordinary Heroes and Voices of Young Heroes, and these are really quick reads. This is like for an early reader, but this is about young people, like during World War II, how they actually did things that affected and it helped
Yeah.
have victory over the enemy, which is really very, very interesting. Well, here's Anne Frank, of course, but there are a whole bunch of other young people. Very interesting reading. Really captures a person's
I'll look
attention.
those up.
Really good. The Voices of Ordinary Heroes is World War II as well. It's written by...
My boys like
these are
World
both
War
written
II.
by
I don't.
Kelly Milner Halls. And, oh boy, there's so much fun stuff in here. Oh, wow. Like John Crutcher and just the different heroic things they did. A lot of fun to read. So these are books I recommend, too. I like that. Here are some, maybe for an older young man. God's Smuggler.
Ugh.
This is about Brother Andrew, who smuggled Bibles behind the Iron Curtain.
Okay, this really bothers me. I'm not going to have that in my classroom. That bothers me about religion, about how people put themselves in such danger for no reason. They think they're saving souls, yet there's no evidence. So they go smuggle Bibles behind the Iron Curtain, risking the firing squad, risking the people they're giving themselves the Bibles to, the firing squad, and it's just so reckless. And it really bothers me. Now let's hear what she has to say about
During
it.
the time of the Soviet Union, the Cold War, and boy, this talk about adventure and everything. This is real. This is true. So I think that truth is better than fiction, don't you? There's that.
Sometimes.
Here is The Cross and Switchblade by David Wilkerson, and it's
I don't want my
about
kids.
a young man who was part of the gangs in New York
Yikes.
City. And why can't I remember his name?
Oh my goodness.
He used to live in Colorado Springs where I lived. But anyway, this is really a great book, and this is not sugar coated either. This is like for an older teen. Kind of interesting. Now, then we have these books. These books are easy reads, okay?
Oh,
But
heroes.
they're packed with information, and they're written
Christian
in an interesting
heroes.
way. They
Yep.
are
Not going in my classroom.
These are written by Janet and George Bengi, I think is their name, or Benge. I don't know. These are YWAM biographies. And they have all sorts of these, and they're a lot of fun. My kids love these books. I love them. And this is C.S. Lewis, Jacob de Chazer, George Washington Carver, Benjamin Rush, all kinds. They're just...
So if they had a secular, or if there are secular versions of that, and there kind of are, they're like the QHQ, so like, who was Benjamin Rush? That's a very good secular version of what she's showing right there.
So cool. And there's a gazillion of them. And boys can be lost in those for a long time. And they'll be just walking around talking about them.
Yeah, my boys love those Who HQ stuff.
Okay, here is something that boys love this book. It is the American Boys Handybook. And, it is just a collection of all kinds of cool boy stuff, man. How to make a mole trap. Oh, sorry. See how ours has been loved to pieces?
I don't think we have much use for mole traps in inner city Dallas.
Like how to camp without a tent. Oh, boys love that stuff. 4th of July balloons that you can make. Wow.
Those kill
How
animals.
To rig a sail, and sail small boats. Yeah.
That's interesting.
You just got all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, they just love this stuff. How to
I
stock
don't
a
think so.
freshwater aquarium. Kite time.
Yeah.
Kites.
I don't know about that.
This is actually like a precursor to Boy Scouts, and boys love this stuff. They love all kinds of stuff, so that's a good one. Okay, this one, I don't even know if you can find it. I have had trouble finding it. My daughter had trouble finding it. It's Gaining Favor with God and Man by Thayer.
What?
This right here, if you can, it's William M. Thayer. If you could, like, get your sons to read this book, or you could read aloud to them, I'm telling you, they would love it.
No, inappropriate.
It's just like how to get along in life, how to behave yourself, how to, get
How to
ahead,
read, it says.
the wisdom of self-help.
Fun.
This is stuff that young men need. Here's a Dickens novel, Nicholas Nickleby.
Boo, this one, I don't like Dickens.
I'll tell you what, I love Dickens. I love his ability to describe things, but man, he can draw it out.
Okay, so fun fact. The reason Dickens would draw out his novels and make them so long, like if you read the start of Great Expectations, Pip goes on like through his whole family tree and it takes like 10 pages, because Dickens got paid by the word. So the more words he wrote, the more money he made.
And also it's Gothic. So that a Gothic novel means you have to have a lot of darkness before you get to the light. Just saying. But
I find that boys actually don't like Gothic novels as much as girls because there's something very darkly romantic about them. And a lot of women really like Gothic novels, like the Jane Eyre type stuff. I think it's just too a little bit romanticized for most manly type boys.
But anyway, the movie's great, and if you read the book, there's a lot of detail. The book's always better than the movie, right? So
Wrong.
That's that. So now over here we have Mr. Lew Wallace and Ben-Hur. We are currently over halfway through this book, and oh, I am loving it. Now, this is not for young readers, except if they have been concentrating with the McGuffey Readers.
All right, so the McGuffey Readers are what school teachers would use to teach children how to read a really long time ago, and it starts with like early readers to college level stuff, it's written very old fashioned English, and it's just not good for modern day children in public schools because it's very religious, so it's
They will
inappropriate.
have no problem understanding this. But for most of us modern readers, we're going to have a little struggle. Just saying. But if you're kids and you have been really into the McGuffey Readers, this will be like cutting through butter. Otherwise, it'll take you a little bit. But it's a beautiful book. It's much, much better than the movie.
Okay, so fun fact. The movie is actually one of the gayest movies of all time, the old one with Charleston Heston. I actually haven't seen it, but I remember watching it in a documentary, like watching parts of it in a documentary called The Celluloid Closet, about how gay people in the olden days would kind of sneak gay themes into their movies on celluloid. So, I mean, it's up there with like Rebel Without a Cause about how gay it is. I highly doubt and Rebecca, and I don't think she knows
Course,
that.
um, but it's totally it's kind of a different perspective. I think you'll like it. This right here is one from publisher Bethlehem Books, and Bethlehem Books has some really great stories
It
for
looks
boys. The Hidden
medieval.
Treasure of Glaston is about the medieval ages, and oh, I
Yeah.
tell you what, it is.
I will go ahead and say that some of the boys that are into history, I really see two eras with them that they love. They always like World War II, it seems, probably because of the planes and the machinery and all that. And medieval times, a lot of them are very interested in medieval times, probably because of the swords and chivalry and all that. I'll look into this book. It looks kind of old, but and from a place called Bethlehem Publishing. We'll
It's
see.
a fun read. It's got lots of adventure and history and all kinds of cool stuff. Um, anyway, Bethlehem Books is a great source for books that boys could love. All right, now here we have The Norsemen in the West. This is an R.M. Ballantyne book. This is one of many, and you saw that in my last video. I talked
I think a good alternative to this would be Norse Mythology by Neil
about
Gaiman.
Ballantyne. My son Timothy bought this whole set for everyone, and so the kids have loved
That's
a lot
sweet.
of these. But these are definitely Christian books, but they're full of history and adventure, all kinds of.
So, fun fact, Norse mythology and their religion actually influenced Christianity mythology a whole lot. So I can see how it could be construed to be like, oh, this is really, really Christian, because it is.
Kinds of adventure. Now, the other author that's like R.M. Ballantyne would be G.A. Henty. And I will link that in the post that I'm going to create. But G.A. Henty, I don't have any of his books because we always checked them out of the library. There were so many where we lived. But G.A. Henty is like total adventure and
I don't
history,
know
all
who that
kinds of
is.
different history. So those
History can be a pretty big hit with boyish
two right here are
boys.
really great for boys. Here is a classic. And I was
No.
reading recently, and I can't remember who it was yet. It's either
I
Abraham Lincoln, George
absolutely
Washington, one of
hated the
those two.
Pilgrim's
Read The
Progress.
Pilgrim's Progress over and over and over again. The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan is a classic, and it's something that all young people should read and get into because there's so much to learn in the pages. Okay, that's just really good character building. Here's another good one that I think all young people need to read, all young men, is the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So
That's a great one. Every American needs to read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin's very witty, and he tells us what was going on in early American. So even if you're not super patriotic, but you are an American, you need to try to read at least some of it.
Ben Franklin wrote this about himself. And there's a lot of wisdom in this book. There's also, it even touches on the revival that was happening in the 1760s, and like when George Whitefield would come to town and the effect of his preaching, what it would have on the community. That's Ben Franklin. Although Ben Franklin, within his writing, the time that he wrote this book, he didn't believe in Jesus. I mean, he didn't. He talks about it. It doesn't mean that afterwards he didn't. But during the time of his writing, he decided that, because George Whitefield, asked him a number of times, and he says that he refused it. So, just something interesting. But this is a book. This is a book that every American should read because It just gives you
Yes.
firsthand account information, like what was really going on from that perspective. Is really good. So that kind of wraps that up.
Okay, so she's wrapped up. I guess she's going to go on and talk for another 7 minutes. But overall, my reaction to this, I guess I'll call it haul, her recommendations. Lots of vintage books, which are probably pretty problematic in the way they present old historical events. I'm sure it's very whitewashed. That being said, I definitely very much agree with some of her recommendations. Johnny Tremaine, Robin Hood, Narnia, C.S. Lewis, those young heroes. I'm sure there's a secular version of that. Ben Franklin, of course. So she has a lot of really good recommendations in here for public school and for just like ordinary boys not raised in this culture. Um, but I think a lot of the books she recommends are really problematic, but we know I am not for censorship or book banning in schools. So take this with a grain of salt, but overall, I'm going to say I approve with this video at about 65%. So, yeah, thanks for watching this, and I'll do an outro. Thanks for watching, my good friends. I will see you next time. I know this video was a little long, but I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you liked it. Keep reading, keep writing, keep loving words. I'll see you next time. Bye!